Well, hey, Nikki, thank you so much for joining me tonight on Zoom. I know it's not exactly our comfort zones talking online, but we are so honored to have you share around the idea of mental well-being. So thanks so much for joining me for some Q&A tonight.
Thanks for having me.
I want to quickly introduce you for those watching who don't know who you are. So you and your husband, Nikki, are the location pastors up in Cairns. You've been up there for a year now, doing an amazing job. We just love you guys and celebrate you. But prior to moving to Cairns, you actually worked with Dr. Robbie, who we got to watch on the screen a couple of weeks ago as he opened our Soul Space series. And you are a clinical psychologist.
Yep.
You studied for 7 years, which is absolutely amazing. And now you're running your own business up in Cairns, seeing clients in face-to-face, but also online. So again, so honored to have you with us tonight, answering some questions. I want to maximize the time I have with you, so I'm going to get straight into it if that's okay.
Yeah, no worries.
With the first question, which is interesting to ask you from a Christian's point of view as well as a psychologist's point of view. And the question is this: what are your thoughts on people saying all you need is Jesus in regards to mental well-being and mental health? What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. I think that people who say these kind of statements generally have a limited idea about how mental health conditions are developed and how they're maintained. So I think what they're basically saying is we believe that mental health conditions are a spiritual issue and they need a spiritual solution to that. And I guess I probably have a few problems with that, because I think it kind of dismisses the other factors that contribute to a mental health problem or difficulty developing. So for instance, we know that like environmental factors, like if you're particularly like in a toxic home environment or a domestic violence relationship, or you've been exposed to a natural disaster like a cyclone or the bushfires or something like that. We know about economical factors like poverty or financial hardship if you've lost your job. We know social factors like social isolation or having difficulty with building friendships or maintaining friendships. We know biological factors contribute, like genetics and the chemical balances and serotonin levels and dopamine levels in the brain. We know that those contribute to our mood and our functioning. We know that there are psychological factors, like for instance, when people have experienced a psychological injury, if they've experienced trauma, say, like they're a sexual abuse victim, or they've been a war veteran, or they've had a really traumatic accident or something like that. So there's so many different factors that contribute to a mental health problem or difficulty developing. And so the problem with simply saying that there's only one solution to that problem, I think it really dismisses there's other types of factors feeding in and maintaining that disorder. So if you think about it a bit like if we had a lung cancer patient that was developed lung cancer because they were smoking cigarettes for the last 20 years or something like that, we wouldn't say to them, just pray about it, right? We would say to them, look, we need to stop the behavior that has contributed to this problem developing, and then we need to get you professional help with a lung cancer specialist who knows exactly how to treat this, diagnose it, work with it, that kind of thing. And then on top of that, let's pray and invite Jesus into this particular situation and believe for his supernatural intervention. So I guess it's looking at all of the different factors and treating all of those at once. So it's not dismissing the spiritual side of things. I think definitely, we need to consider that in the treatment plan and in the resolution of those difficulties. But there's a problem when we are only take that route. And I think, we put people at risk of not recovering, and potentially, asking difficult or damaging questions as to why that is.
Wow. So what you're saying is it's not necessarily a spiritual issue that's making people struggle with their mental health. That in maybe most cases it's not spiritual. It could be something physical or something that's happened in their past, or even physiologically it could be something that's going on in their brain. So I just think that's a really good point for you to make, Nikki. It's not actually a spiritual matter. And yes, Jesus can and does heal, but just as you get like you said, if you have cancer, you're not just going to pray, you're actually going to seek the help of doctors and people who can help. So I think that's really important point to start on. So thanks for that. It's very wise. I'm so glad we get to hear from you. Just very wise. I'm soaking it all up. So my next question for you, Nikki, is what are some practical things that we can do, maybe practical habits or disciplines that can help us on this mental well-being journey to make sure that we are as mentally healthy as possible?
Yeah, so when it comes to mental well-being, we understand that there are, we call them 6 foundations to that kind of underpin people who are really flourishing in their mental health. And the first of those is sleep. So it's really important that we take...
How many hours a day? How many hours?
Well, everyone's different, but I would say a minimum 7.
Wow.
I think if you're
7, that is amazing. Thank you for making that statement.
Yeah, look, some people need more than others. I think you just need to gauge on how you feel after so many hours sleep, and if you're feeling really depleted and drained, I think then try out more sleep. It's a bit of trial and error. Everybody's kind of different, but yeah, minimum 7. So making sure that you are getting to bed on time, waking up at a decent hour, having a sleep routine, that's really important. The second is your diet. So taking care of the foods that you eat, but also making sure that you're eating enough. What people don't usually understand is that your brain actually uses an incredible amount of calories to think and function. Something up to 50% of your calorie intake the brain uses. It's a huge machine that's powering constantly. So it needs the energy. So if we're not starting our day with breakfast, for instance, we're not starting our day with enough energy to give our brain enough fuel to think clearly. So we're already predisposing ourselves to unhelpful thinking patterns, which potentially could reduce our coping mechanisms during the day. So eating enough, and there's lots of science that's recently coming out about the connection between gut health and brain health. And, you know, you can do your own research on that. There's sort of mixed findings and it's very new, but there is lots of research coming out around the connection between those two things. The third thing is our exercise. And exercise is one of the best preventative and treatment activities that you can do. There's research findings that have come out to say that exercise is as effective as an antidepressant in treating mild to moderate depression. I think this was a 6-week exercise routine compared to an antidepressant medication that was offered, and they found similar results. So it has powerful effects on mood, the endorphins and improving your mood, but also it's a great anxiety manager in that it reduces your cortisol levels in your blood and helps you to feel more calm. The fourth thing is your social functioning. And this is, maintaining good connections in your life, having good friends, having fun. All of that is really important to mental well-being. The fifth thing is your spiritual life, or your, for us as Christians, your prayer, your connection with God, that time where you're engaging in, conversations or thoughts about a bigger purpose, a bigger meaning in life, and that kind of thing. And the last thing is your intellectual stimulation. So it's really important that our brain keeps growing and being sort of fed information. And I think we need to prioritize learning a new skill or it could be a language, it could be learning how to cook something different, it could be learning how to use Zoom, right? That we're all navigating at the moment with this this new season of life. But it's really important, those 6 things, when it comes to flourishing in our mental well-being. And I'll just give you a little tip on some things that you can do with that, is you can do a quick assessment at home where you take those 6 factors and give them a rating out of 5 as to how satisfied you are with those areas.
Wow.
And then you can sort of think about, over the next 3 months, where would I like to take that area of my life? Set a goal. It might be, if you're 3 in a diet, you might want to take it to 4, and then think about what would have to change in order for it to get to a 4. And that's now your goal. And now work towards one area of your life trying to improve that.
That's brilliant, Nikki. That's honestly so easy for everyone to do, isn't it? It just makes it so practical for us to really be responsible for our mental well-being every day. And I just think it's so easy to just think through all those 6 different things that you've just said, rate ourselves on it and come up with a goal. How can I improve? And even if we feel like we're probably doing okay with our mental well-being, there's probably still room to grow. So I just love that thought. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get up here and start rating myself and see how I'm doing with all of that.
Good.
So how are we able to identify, what are some key indicators to help us identify maybe in ourselves or in our loved ones, maybe some people who are struggling with their mental well-being, or if we're struggling? What are some of those key indicators that we can be mindful of?
Yeah. So those same foundations that I've just given you, they're generally the things that start to deteriorate when we're not doing very well. So for instance, your sleep, usually it's difficulty getting to sleep or staying asleep, and waking up early in the morning before your alarm are generally key signs that something's going on psychologically for you.
Yeah.
Your diet, if you're eating more than usual or less than usual, so you're binge eating or you just got no appetite, that can be an indicator. Exercise, so usually you see a real dive in motivation, and this thing called anhedonia, which is where you lose interest in things that you used to find interesting. So that can sort of go. Your social functioning, you can see a real withdrawal in people, not wanting to go out, hang out with friends, avoiding social situations, sometimes, avoiding church or shopping centres, busy places can be an indicator. Of course, your spiritual life, so just losing interest in, maybe you had a really strong connection with God, but you're just losing interest or finding it hard to connect, and you've got sort of some of those other indicators present. That's probably an indicator. And lastly, I think just with the intellectual stimulation, finding it really hard to concentrate, a reduction in your attention and concentration. And they're all signs and symptoms that you're probably finding something or struggling with a little bit of mental health difficulties.
Wow. So those 6 things are really a framework for our whole mental health.
Yeah, definitely.
That's so helpful. I just love that. It's so easy, isn't it? It's not like, it's not too far-fetched. Anybody can really grasp a hold of those 6 different concepts and really work hard and be responsible for our mental well-being.
Yeah.
I do want to ask, when it is beyond us and we are trying to, navigate those 6 things, trying to be responsible, but it's just a hill that we cannot seem to climb over. What's your advice there? What do we do? What are the next steps, either for ourselves or for loved ones? What are the next steps where it's like we're trying really hard with those 6 things, but we just cannot overcome this mental health, this negative mental health? Really, what are your thoughts there? What do we do?
Yeah, so I think it's time to get the support of somebody else, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's engaging a coach. I like to think of myself as I sometimes hate the term clinical psychologist because it has such a stigma sometimes around it, but really it's getting someone that you can be accountable to, that has that expertise to be able to dissect and really diagnose some of the underlying factors, because those things, they're real behavioral things that we've talked about, but sometimes there's cognitive things that are going on that need to be addressed. Your thinking styles, the frameworks in which you're viewing the world, your core beliefs, and they can sometimes arise from things that are much deeper and ingrained in us, usually from experiences that we've had and the meaning that we've taken from them. So I think engaging with a professional, someone who's really trained in how to pull that apart and help somebody journey through that, is probably going to help that person to find symptom relief and really get their mental well-being back on track.
Yeah, it's not just about talking with someone, is it? It's actually talking with a professional, someone like you said, who is trained.
Yeah.
So just for a few seconds, talk about that, because I know there is a huge stigma around seeing, like, getting professional help, massive stigma.
Yeah.
So for you as a professional, like, what's the difference between just talking to a friend or your spouse versus talking to a trained professional? Why would you suggest actually seeking that professional help?
Well, I think there's probably a lot of validation that you'll get from a friend in that, you know, yeah, they'll go, yeah, that really sucks for you, and that's really wonderful. We need that in our life. We need people that can get on our level, show us empathy, and kind of maybe even encourage us or point us to scripture, or whatever it is. But the difference, I think, when it comes to working with a mental health professional is just remembering, like, there's been extensive training. You know, I lived and breathed, and I still do, the models of mental health, the understanding of the brain and how it works, the impact of cognitions and how to pinpoint them, and I think and then change them and help somebody to gain skills and strategies in order to have power back over their thinking and behaviors. So I guess that's the main difference, is you're just working with somebody who has a depth of understanding. And when there's a depth of understanding, I come back to, you know, you wouldn't go talk to your friend if you had lung cancer. You go talk to your GP and then get a referral to a specialist. Yeah. And that's what I think a psychologist is they're a specialist in mental health conditions and just general well-being. So it doesn't have to be when you're in the depths of depression or in the heights of anxiety. It can be a preventative measure too. If you just want to improve your mental well-being, we see plenty of clients that want to do that. And I think that's a really great thing, a proactive thing.
Yeah, it's got such a stigma around it, doesn't it? That we draw that divide between our physical health, and then there's the shadow and the stigma around our mental health. But yeah. I think, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's slowly changing. I think especially in my generation, there is more of a willingness to see professional help and to treat it just as we would our physical bodies, which is really encouraging to see that.
Definitely.
In your experience, what's the most common mental health difficulty in Australia right now?
So the statistics suggest that depression, anxiety, and substance abuse disorders are the key three that are prevalent in Australia. And the stats suggest that 1 in 5 people will experience or are currently experiencing a mental health condition. So it's more common than sometimes we think, but typically depression, anxiety, and I would say that would be and substance abuse, and they would be the top 3 that would be presenting at the clinics that I've worked at and what we would primarily treat.
And is there an age group that you think is more likely to struggle with their mental health, or is it just like a wide variety of people?
It is. I guess that they always say that mental health conditions don't discriminate, in that they can affect anybody. But interestingly, the biggest onset of mental health conditions is in young adulthood. So we see a lot of young adults and that high sort of grade 11 and 12 and moving into transitioning to adulthood. It's a huge adjustment period. There's a lot of pressure to perform. Obviously the brain is coming into a certain level of development that kind of predisposes it again to certain types of thinking. But it's also a really great time to get treated, because it can really prevent a whole lot of other ongoing difficulties in life. But that's probably, one of the major demographics that we see in the clinic.
Wow. I'm going to ask one more question. I'm going to put you on the spot because I haven't prepared you for this. And I'm going to get you to take your clinical psychologist hat on and put your pastor hat on.
Yeah.
But for anybody who's watching this and is maybe struggling with mental health issues in their own lives, or maybe are around a loved one who's struggling with it, what's the encouragement? What's the exhortation, the blessing that Pastor Nikki wants to speak over that group of people today?
I think that Jesus cares. He cares about it. And that I just want to, I think sometimes the encouragement can sometimes be the normalization of some of these struggles. Because I think in talking about that stigma, sometimes within the church, we can really feel like if we're struggling with something, it might mean that I haven't got enough faith, or my relationship with God isn't great, or it must be like, there's often a lot of blame that can come from that. And I think I love what Dr. Robbie Brang brought, last Sunday or the Sunday before, around just the different characters in the Bible that have struggled. And I think that's just so important to normalize that struggle and difficulties and big questions and grief and heartache and all this kind of thing. They're normal and they're a part of life. And I think the encouragement is that Jesus never leaves us, and he walks with us, and he wants us to find hope. And my encouragement would be that there are more and more Christians that are pursuing the career of psychology. And I think, like, I know for me, I really feel like this is a call of God on my life, that I've been called by God as a pastor, yes, but also as a psychologist to assist people to break free of this. And so my encouragement is there's hope, and that, Jesus is with you and your pastors are with you, and, you can come out the other side of this and have a great testimony.
That's wonderful, Nikki. Thank you for your encouragement. I'm covered in goosebumps. I don't know about everybody else, so that was so powerful. Thank you for loving us to the point of sharing your wisdom with us tonight. So appreciative of it. And I do want to say that anybody who's watching, you've already said to me that they can reach out to you if they want to seek professional help or have a chat with you. So how would you encourage them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so my website, it's www.nikkinusafora.com, and we might try and put that with my name, because we know my last name is quite difficult. And so we might try and put that in a little link somewhere in wherever this recording goes, so you can click it. So nikkinusafora.com, check me out, and drop me a little contact and I'll be in touch.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this Q&A, Nikki. You've been a blessing to us. And we'll
Thank you. Thanks, Stacey.
Bye.
Bye.